Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Today I like to do a video that's kind of outside the box and kind of outside my comfort zone as well. I just also want to preference this by saying, no, I'm not going to become a culture war channel. just, I'm not going to go in those depths. But I do want to talk about something that happened last weekend surrounding a certain character. In fact, it is the character that's on the screen right now. Iridan the Witness. Now, Twitter and YouTube was abuzz for all of 2 days over this minor controversy. Then it got completely overshadowed by the female custodies animation, which I'm not gonna talk about. But like, I think the animation is cool. I understand why people have problems with female custodies, but 40K isn't really my wheelhouse anymore. It used to be a fan. But I kind of just lost interest. It wasn't like one thing or another that GW did. I just lost interest and went from there. But what I am actually really interested in is Age of Sigmar. Ever since I played a video game called Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin and gave that a chance, I just fell in love with the setting. I just think the setting it's really cool. It's like a power metal take on fantasy. And it just tickles me just perfectly. And past couple of months, I've been getting back into painting, which I haven't done since I was a teen. Like, the last thing I painted was the Warhammer Fantasy starter set, 6th edition, when it was Orcs and Humans. And now I am just almost completing the Warrior starter set for 3rd edition Age of Sigmar, and I got Scaventide looking me in the eye, and I really want to get those guys done. So I do enjoy Age of Sigmar. I'm still learning about Age of Sigmar, but I am a fan of the setting. And I am mainly making this video to kind of dispel the controversy that happened and why people are blown out of proportion and why it actually makes sense in the setting. And it's a really cool idea from a narrative standpoint. Alright, so who the hell is Iridan the Witness? Who the hell are the Stormcast Eternals? Lee, what the hell are you talking about? Okay, so really quickly, Stormcast Eternals, which is the army that I'm actually primarily collecting, are the born, or rather forged from the souls of human heroes. As the little wiki says, skills of war can be taught, while honor, courage, and simple faith can be not. These are exceptional human beings who, in life, were either courageous, super honorable, or just really faithful, downright good dudes and women who, for one reason or another, died, and instead of having the souls go into the afterlife, the god Sigmar basically steal the souls from Nagash, who is one of the main gods of the dead, and forges them anew to be his holy warriors, to drive back the forces of chaos, as you can see in this picture right here. They look amazing. A bit gaudy with the golden armor, but amazing. So, how are the Stormcast made? Well, it actually goes over here. Sigmar plucks brave heroes from the mortal realms using bolts of lightning. The soul of a hero chosen to become a Stormcast Eternal is transported to the Heldenhall, and it feasts for 3 days, building its strength for the trials ahead. Following 3 days, it makes its way to the chambers of the broken world. First, the raw soul stuff is literally molten and reforged in the Forge Eternal by the 6 smiths, making it ready for rebirth. If it survives, which, if it doesn't survive, it actually just dissipates and gets sucked into the realm of Ashi. The heavenly realm, rather. Your soul can die during this process, so it's not guaranteed. But I digress. If it survives, the soul is shifted upwards If it survives, the soul is shifted upwards into the Currents of Tempering, where it is given the gifts of the gods and must endure 7 times 7 trials. That's 49 trials, by the way. These trials, these trials were originally devised by the god of the dwarves and with the aid of Sigmar, and now their nature is mysterious to everyone but the two gods and the six smiths. If the soul completes his trial, his or her trial, it's ready to be made flesh and blood once more, upon the anvil of apotheosis, the broken down and rebuilt by the shock waves and the blessings of the world hammer. From a seed of starlight and lightning sprouts a web of veins of nerve endings, then bones and finally other organs. The new Stormcast Eternal awakens with a new body embedded with the energies of Azir and a shard of Sigmar's divine essence. Ashy is a different realm. It's the Azir realm. My apologies. And we can see on this picture, we have a Stormcast being remade on the anvil of apotheosis. Literally, lightning is shocking him back into existence. And what happens when one of these superhuman paladins die? So when they die, they get transported back to the anvil of apotheosis. They don't have to go through the trials again, but they still have to be remade, and reforged. And every time they get reforged, they lose a part of their self, the part of the soul. It gets lost, it gets changed, it gets just warped due to the rather traumatic and painful process of not only dying, but being remade. And the top three that we're really going to go and actually look at is memory loss, identity loss, and emotional loss. Those are the three major ones. There's a lot of physical changes the body undergoes, but for the purpose right now, just those top three. Okay. Now, let's actually talk about Iridan the Witness. Okay. Iridan the Witness strikes a morbid figure on top of their Morgriff Erix, if I'm pronouncing that right, wielding the axe of the final threshold, which, just as a side, the Age of Sigmar models that have been coming out lately have been just amazing. Okay, this person looks fantastic, painted wonderfully. I don't know if I'm ever going to pick this model up. It's going to be an expensive model, but I kind of want to. It looks cool. But I digress. Before reforging, Iridan was an Azerite scholar whose memory became eidetic when they were transformed into a Stormcast Eternal. Now, what they actually mean is photographic. As you can see right here, it's popularly used interchangeably. Eidetic means you have really good short-term memory. Photographic means you have very good long-term memory. And as you can see in the next sentence, the ability to recall countless years of military strategy provides a vital asset to Sigmar, but they are forever tormented by intense recollections of horrendous battles. So, they have the ability to perfectly recollect memories from long ago. Doesn't matter how long it is, they remember everything. At the same time, they can never forget all the horrific trauma that they have witnessed. Now, as a small aside, I was in the military, and to give you a very, very basic overview of what PTSD is when the body recalls a memory that's unpleasant. You can look at that memory at almost a dispassionate view. There's no emotions, or very little emotions are attached to this bad memory that you might have. When it comes to PTSD, your mind and body cannot process the emotions. So when you remember something, your body goes through all the motions of when that memory happened. And that's basically the baseline of PTSD. This is a very, very basic overview. It is a lot more complex than that. But for this video, he basically cannot forget his PTSD. From years of horrific battles fighting anything from demons to orcs to giants, he can't forget any of it. Or rather, they can't forget any of it. after a pilgrimage to a shrine of Morda, which is a raven god of the dead. Iridan was granted knowledge that they have since only shared with Sigmar and Ionis Cryptborn. With this insight, they became the first to grant a comrade suffering from the curse of reforging a true death. Now, little pause here. When it comes to the Stormcast Eternal, they might be reforged to the point where they become insane, where their soul just gets blasted, and although they be able to be reformed into a new body, mentally, spiritually, they are just completely gone. Iridan was the first guy to do a mercy kill on a Stormcast Eternal. But I digress once again. Where was I? Oh, here. So, Iridan is now deployed in any battle where Stormcast Eternals are in danger of losing themselves completely, never once forgetting the face of the ones they put to rest. So not only can they not forget any of the battles that they have witnessed, they also cannot forget the faces and memories of literally everyone that they have killed with the this executioner's axe they got. It looks actually pretty amazing with the flames. So when it comes to going back to the reforging for one moment, memory loss, identity loss, emotional loss. What if you were reforged and through countless years of battle, you literally dehumanize yourself, or the reforging process dehumanizes you. You don't look human anymore because Stormcast Eternals are about 7 to 9 feet tall, and all the physical changes that they go through, does one hell of a thing on the psyche. These people are really strong-willed. And what happens if somebody gets such identity loss, identity change, that they don't think that they're human anymore? That they think that they're simply a creature that's maybe even beyond human. Maybe they think they're, dare I say, maybe even like subhuman, but like a different creature altogether. And that has always been a really interesting idea. And that's one of the reasons why I like Stormcast Eternal so much over, say, something like Space Marines. Because with the Stormcast Eternals, from a narrative standpoint, you can have narratives of lovers, Stormcast lovers, who one of them dies, they come back, and they don't remember anything about their past lover. Or, this theme of like losing oneself, not only just the body, but the mind and the very soul holding back the darkness and the chaos of the world and the realms. It's just really kind of interests me, and I always wanted to dive deeper into this concept because there is a lot you can do with it. And speaking of what you can do with this narrative, I have a little something from Realms of Ruin, a little cinematic that kind of highlights what I've been saying when it comes to the reforging process, rather crystallized and succinctly. So let's just watch this a little bit here.
Reinforcements. I don't believe it. Shouldn't be praised.
Your praise for Sigmar is warranted.
You were reforged.
I was returned to the Lord Sigmar. He gazed upon our cannabis and sent me back to enact his will.
We've reached the far side of the storm, Sigrun. You don't remember?
Much is lost to me.
Do you even remember who I am?
I remember what's important. Iridan.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause it right here. She's just lied to him. she could only remember his name, Iridan. Now, for a bit of context, she used to be his commander. They have fought side by side in a lot of battles. And she can't remember who this guy is. The comradeship, the friendship that they once had. She has no idea who he is. In fact, Sigmar probably told her about, hey, you're going to help a guy called Iridan. And that's the only thing that she knows about this guy. Now, to also highlight the changes that happened to her, this is earlier in the video game, where before she got killed and reforged. And that's not spoiler alert, it happens pretty early on. But as you can see, she has blonde hair, scars on her face not as prominent, and even the eyes have like a slightly pale green color, okay? And this is what we call foreshadowing. So, and then we compare this to what she is now. The scars are running deeper. Her hair is completely white. Her eyes have like a dull, almost shine to them. And, you know, again, the deepened scars, I know like it is a darker lighting, but like even the scars, even like the scars that she had before look a lot deeper and just more pronounced. So gotta resume.
Knights Excelsior. What are they doing here? The settlers have been through enough without needing to fear the zealotry of their kind.
Their business is not of your concern. Where is Demetrius?
Okay. And the Knights Excelsior, I'm going to just point out another thing about those guys, is basically when it comes to, as I said, when it comes to the reforging process, you lose your emotions and your memories. Oh, there is a loss of them. The Knights Excelsior are people who actually believe that emotional loss makes you a better fighter, because you can fight more as a emotional detachment. And Sigmar actually uses these Knights Excelsior for purging operations. When there is a town that is infested by chaos and everything needs to die, whether it be corrupted or even the people who are still pure, he sends the Knights Excelsior to wipe the slate clean. And when it comes to their own identity, the Knights Excelsior actually fight as one and view themselves as one unit instead of one individual. Now, what kicked this controversy off? Well, it was a post by Thor Odinson saying when the Nova preview of Iridan the Witness, when it first launched, he wrote, "Lol, the Stormcast is a they/them. ASO continues to be Idota trash." And then Casual Hammerer responded. Now, I don't know who Casual Hammerer is, so I'm not going to talk about what they said. However, I will point out that they did reply to Casual Hammerer, and they did kind of out themselves as a Warhammer fantasy, or the old world fantasy fan. As a little history, Warhammer Fantasy GW ended the setting because it wasn't profitable by a large margin. I believe they were actually losing money when it came to fantasy. I know they were being outsold by the paint that Warhammer was actually selling. And one box of Space Marines was actually outselling their entire line. More people were buying, I believe it was the Tactical Squad of Space Marines, than buying anything with Warhammer Fantasy. So they ended it in a event called the End Times. And everyone hated it. It was a bad ending, bad writing, bad rules. No one liked it. But some of the Warhammer fans just haven't let it go. It's been about 10 years at this point. In Old World, it's actually still coming back. And it just, some Warhammer fans just cannot let it go. So, just as a small aside there, okay? Now, let's talk about John. So, funny enough, when I first saw that tweet, I wasn't even going to make a video. I was like, whatever, it's a thing on Twitter, I'm not going to dive in, right? But as I was actually watching YouTube, rather, as I was playing Total Warhammer while listening to YouTube in the background. One of this video actually popped up, and I can only assume it's because of the amazing Skynet ability of Google and their algorithms was like, hey, wait a second, you saw this post, there's a video on YouTube, we're going to show you a video. So, thank you, Skynet, for intruding on our lives. There was no other way to say it. So he made a video, and he also made a post on the Fandom Pulse, which is I believe his own website on Substack. And I don't really want to attack him per se. Like, I have nothing against John. I don't listen to him. I don't subscribe to him. We are two opposite ends. But he does put forth you can call it misinformation, you can call it culture war bullshit, whatever it is. He kind of says basically a pack of lies to further his own agenda. And I would like to push against that, okay? So going quickly through his article, I'm not going to read it word by word. This video is probably going to already be a bit too long for my liking. But he starts off talking about the female custodies, okay? And I'll say this right now, I think GW handled the introduction of the female custodies completely wrong. I understand why you might not like female custodies, but I don't really care if there's male or female custodies, but I will admit that GW handled it in the worst way possible, with a small blurb in the codex and a tweet. Not good, okay? They should have actually done it, like, properly. Like, if they would have had, like, a novel and explaining why female custodies are something new with all the stuff that's going on in 40K, like the giant ass crack in space that shits out demons, that would be actually a lot better than what they did. And because basically what they did was like, oh, there's always been female custodies. You just never heard about them. Which is, like, a really stupid way to go about things. Okay. So he talks about the female custodies. He talks about the Warhammer Wiki being changed in a gaslighting campaign, which I'm not going to talk about because I don't really care and I really don't know. And then he talks about this other 40K account, which I don't care. And then he finally talks about the Age of Sigmar Stormcast Eternals, right? And he says, adding they, them pronouns to the miniatures. And then he talks about who the Stormcast Eternals is. They say that Wiki defines them characters forged, not made, which is technically not true, because again, it's the fact that they were born and were heroes in life was actually the most important thing. But yeah, the Stormcast Eternals are technically forged. And then they say that, which Games Workshop apparently took as an opening to introduce evil gender ideology by claiming they don't have male or female genders, but are instead they and them. This is a complete fucking lie. A complete lie. As we have already witnessed, or as I have already said, it is only Iridan the Witness that considers themselves they, them. Because he or she, they, might be so dehumanized with all the horrific memories that they don't see themselves as human anymore, which makes for a rather tragic character. And to also add a final nail into that coffin, here are two Stormcast Eternals models. The one on the left is a male model, and we know this because the pectorals on the armor is completely flat. The one on the right is female because the breastplate has kind of like a uni breast going on, right? So it's not like, for example, if we look at the 40K Cadian shock troops, it's not a simple head swap on a model because that's female. But the body is still male, and the armor reflects as a kind of utilitarian armor set. Like, there's no change in the armor. While if you look at the Stormcast Eternal, there is a difference in armor. So they're not getting rid of the genders. In fact, if anything, they went out of their way to highlight the genders. So even if the person is wearing a helmet, you can tell that this is a female and that is a male. Going back to the article, he basically copy-pastes what I've already told you in the Nova opening preview about Iridan the Witness. Since Iridan is a singular person, the terminology of they seems to be used intentionally to push the extreme gender ideology into the Warhammer universe through its Age of Sigmar line. Again, complete bullshit. That's just complete bullshit, okay? It is a narrative within the Stormcast Eternals that it fits the faction and it's only one person. And then he says, Games Workshop is taking the lore of the Forge, not Born, again, technically correct but not correct, aspect of Stormcast Eternals, and trying to turn this into a point in the culture war by no longer ascribing them male or female genders. Again, also bullshit for the reasons I outlined. Then he talks about Thor Odinsson's little post, and then he says, this could be even worse for the Warhammer community than the female custodies, okay? Now, this came out 7 days ago, and in that time, there was an animation called The Tithe. I believe it was the second or third episode that featured the female custodies. And for what I've seen on Twitter, people actually really like the animation. I know that there's some people that didn't like the animation because there's a female custodies, but everyone else really liked the animation. They liked the characterization. They loved the action. I mean, the action looked buttery smooth and really actually highlights these superhuman warriors being not only super strong and super fast, but also incredibly graceful as well, wearing this really bulky, heavy armor. Hats off to the animation team because they did a fantastic job on that. Now, he also made a video, because of course he did. And to quickly highlight the video, he starts the video doing a little introduction. He shills his book, Justified. And this is, I'm not going to talk about his book, but John is a writer. And the fact that, like, he seemingly can't grasp this really interesting narrative that runs not only through the faction, but through that certain character is a bit mind-boggling. I don't know if he just doesn't... I don't think this guy actually knows anything about Age of Sigmar, other than what people have actually told him. I could be completely wrong. He could be a complete fan of Age of Sigmar, but from what I've seen from him so far, and what I've read, he's either intentionally lying, or he just doesn't know enough, or both. It could be both. So he talks about Justified. He goes through the article that we just read, and basically every time the article says they, he gives a smug chuckle. But the point of the video that I actually do want to highlight is right here. So let's take a listen.
On this page, I swear there was, to show that it was very, very intentional as such a deal. But no, it looks like there's not the word he on here at all. The word she does not appear at all. There's only they. And so there it is.
So, of course, it's only they because it's talking about a character who might be so dehumanized that they don't see themselves male or female anymore. And the other characters that they were talking about in the plural sense. So it could be a male or female lord, so they use they. So that's why you won't see he or she.
They're trying to remove gender from this stuff. They're trying to push into the wokeness even further with the Stormcast Eternals. And this is what Warhammer Fantasy is going to become.
Okay, so I'm going to stop him right there. This is not Warhammer Fantasy. This is Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Warhammer Fantasy is actually the term for the old world, because that is proper Warhammer Fantasy. This is Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So I don't know if he is just trying to confuse the two or what, but no, it's Warhammer Fantasy. And again, as I've shown, they're not getting rid of the genders.
Now, Warhammer Fantasy, like I said, it has always been worse in this regard than Warhammer 40k. Warhammer.
See, so that is just not true. See, Warhammer Fantasy, again, not only is it a different setting, that came from the dark fantasy side of literature. 40K, I actually believe that 40K might actually have more gay characters in their novels than Warhammer Fantasy ever did, because I do distinctly remember reading about the Caiaphas K novels and being surprised that they added lesbians in some of the female guards. That is in his regiment.
Warhammer Fantasy is like their testing ground. I feel like they push harder in this, and the reason they do is it's just not the seller that 40K is. 40K is
Although that is true. 40K is the much more popular setting at the moment. It is the higher seller. Although I do believe that Age of Sigmar is catching up.
such a bigger property, they have to be a little more careful about how far they push. But by pushing the female Adeptus Custodes earlier this year, you could tell that they're moving in that direction. And a lot of the Black Library stuff with Warhammer Fantasy also has, a bunch of wokeness in it too. They've done pronouns.
Again, not Warhammer Fantasy, it's Age of Sigmar. And it's really interesting that he doesn't give an example. Like what has Age of Sigmar done that has been DEI? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying DEI is a good thing. DEI is a horrible thing because it's basically stripping people down to their race. I don't think this is DEI though. I do believe that they're just being a lot more looser with their narratives and trying different things because it might actually just simply sell better. I do remember, again, this might have changed, but back in the day, there was actually a criticism when it came to the Black Library books about it being nothing but bolter porn, where it's just like, oh look, here's another story about Space Marines being Space Marines and winning the day, or Space Marines beating the shit out of a Avatar of Cain for the 100th time.
Before, this is not the first time, but it is the first time that I can remember that they actually put this into the miniatures on one of their advertisement page on Warhammer Community. This is the first time that I've seen the Stormcast being referred to as a they at this juncture. And they're doing it because...
Again, only one model for a very specific reason.
As if you look at the Stormcast, the whole lore behind it is that they're forged, not born. And because it's the same thing with the Custodes, right? I mean, they're not naturally born either. And so that's where they're trying to play with this concept of the gender politics, the gender ideology. That's where they see the opening to where they can...
Again, it's not even about gender politics or gender ideology. It is examining the themes of identity and identity loss. I mean, hell, one of my favorite games, funny enough, Signalis, which is a great game, explores this very concept very deeply about identity. Hell, one of my favorite characters in the game, Falke, her identity is completely stripped and replaced from her. Right down to her own sexuality, Falke was never a lesbian. But due to the corruption of stepping through the red gate and having this other personality kind of forced on her like a tumor eating her from the inside out, affected her so much that even her own sexuality wasn't safe and got superseded. So, like, again, it's not gender politics. It's exploring ideas of identity, which is one of the main facets of the Stormcast Eternals.
Push this. It's the same thing with BattleTech.
I have no idea what's happening with BattleTech, I'll be honest with you. The most I've gone to BattleTech was like I played MechWarrior 5 and I love it, and BattleTech the computer game. But when it comes to models and like what's happening in the lore and everything else like that, I couldn't tell you, and I can't speak to that.
In X-Men, they make all the shapeshifters now non-binary or homosexual. Like they got Morph in X-Men 97. When they see these tropes, they were never intended to be designed like that back in the day. They were just intended to be different things that were like kind of edgy and cool. When you're forged and you're not actually, created naturally, you have unnatural powers. You have unnatural seeming beings to you.
Okay, so here's where he kind of almost kills his own argument, because he even admits that these Stormcast Eternals aren't natural. So his entire argument, saying that like, oh, this is just gender politics, and that what Stormcast is supposed to be either male or female. Well, if they're completely unnatural, then they don't have to subscribe, or they don't really have to follow the rules of male or female. And again, when one of the themes of the army, as I'm hammering again and again in this video, is identity and the loss of it, it really does make it seem that, like, yeah, these creatures or these humans might actually devolve into creatures who don't see themselves as human anymore, who see themselves, as, just things to fight chaos, the complete dehumanization of themselves.
And it's meant to be kind of creepy and weird, but it didn't have to do with that gender idea.
Yeah, you know what? And that is correct. It is creepy and weird, to see yourself as, not even being human anymore, just a thing for war. And, going to the point where you're basically begging for death, for the complete annihilation of your soul, because you just can't handle it anymore. It is like, for all the kind of shit that the Stormcast Eternals get, they are almost deeply tragic characters, because there is no fixing this reforging process. The only kind of outcome that they're going to get is annihilation. Like, they've already died. They're not going to heaven. They're just going to get their soul annihilated. And that's what they're giving up in this fight against chaos. It's not simply enough for, say, like a space marine to give their time and, soul and body. The Stormcast Eternals have to give their very identity for this fight. And I'm just going to stop his video right there, because he really doesn't say a lot more after that. All right, so in closing, I really do love Age of Sigmar. And again, these type of videos aren't going to be on the channel a lot. It's just something that I saw and I kind of really want to talk about. I hope you guys learned something about this video, about the Stormcast Eternals. I know I stumbled through my words, and I probably am not as clear as I had hoped to be when it came to this video. But I hope you at least learned something. And if you have any questions, you can guys talk to me on Twitter, talk to me in the comments. I'll be happy to talk more and kind of, I don't want to use the term educate, because that sounds like a pompous ass, but kind of maybe clear things up that I wasn't clear on when it came to explaining things. And if I did such a horrible job, I might do a second video just kind of clearing things up. So yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys learned something, and I will see you next time.